I can't stand it anymore. Why does this quiet neighborhood smell so much like the countryside? After my son Dylan and my grandson Oliver left to pick up the food they ordered, Dylan's wife Charlotte said this with a look of disgust on her face. Feeling uncomfortable, I immediately got up from the sofa. Maybe I should take a walk around the neighborhood until Dylan and Oliver get back? Then Charlotte laughed loudly. If you don't want to breathe the same air as me, feel free to leave this house right now. Of course not. I'm not planning to go back home. Dylan and Oliver kindly invited me for dinner, after all. Charlotte glared at me with an angry look. You dirty woman, no food for you. And don't use the shower or the toilet. You're an adult, figure it out yourself. Then Charlotte brought her nose close to my body and pretended to smell me blatantly. Anyway, eating in the same space as a dirty woman like you makes me feel sick, and you'll dirty the shower and toilet, so definitely don't use them. This is not a request but an order to leave. At that moment, Dylan and Oliver came back home with smiles on their faces. The fragrant smell from the table stimulated my hungry stomach, but I deliberately didn't touch the food. Charlotte was smiling triumphantly as if she found something amusing. The moment I saw her face, I reached the limit of my patience. I stood up from my chair right there. Excuse me for a moment. Dylan and Oliver looked surprised. Mom, what's wrong? Yeah, Grandma, sit down and eat with us. They said kind words to me, but I smiled back and said, I need to use the restroom, so I'll go to a neighbor's house. My name is Ava, a 65-year-old housewife. Since my husband passed away a few years ago, I've been enjoying a quiet life alone in the countryside. I have a son named Dylan, but he left our hometown to attend college. He is now married and has a 15-year-old child named Oliver. Dylan works at a big company and is always busy, so he rarely visits, but he calls me regularly to check on me. How are you? Anything new happening? Thanks to that, I never felt lonely. Dylan and Oliver never fail to send me gifts on my birthday every year. However, Charlotte doesn't seem to like me at all and openly avoids contact with me. This started when Dylan first brought Charlotte to our home before their marriage. At first, Charlotte played the modest wife, but as soon as we were alone, her attitude changed drastically. There are so many bugs here, and this place smells so earthy. I don't want to stay long. I'm sorry, it's not as lively as the city you're used to. It must be boring. Then she gave me a sinister smile. I heard that in the countryside, mothers-in-law have a lot of authority, but it's not like that in the city. Don't do old-fashioned things like interfering in a couple's relationship. She probably intended to warn me even before the marriage. Of course, I never intended to interfere between Dylan and Charlotte, and I also wanted to avoid the old-fashioned mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflicts as much as possible. I don't think what you're worried about will happen. I tried to calmly reason with Charlotte. It's only natural. In the city, if people heard that a son was still in touch with his mom, they'd laugh at him and think he was ridiculous. Seeing her true nature made my skin crawl. However, Dylan seemed completely unaware of her true colors, and even after getting married, he continued to call me. Occasionally, though rarely, I would receive calls from Charlotte, but it was never because she acknowledged my existence. Ava, I've told you multiple times, please stop interfering with our family. We're very annoyed by your persistent calls. Charlotte, if you feel that way, I apologize. But I have never once called Dylan. He's the one who always calls me. He is such a mama's boy. As long as his salary is decent and the household expenses are covered, I don't have any complaints. Then Charlotte, in a voice clear enough for me to hear, said, If you're giving us money, you're more than welcome. Otherwise, please keep your opinions to yourself. Okay, I understood. I felt sad, but since Dylan continued to call me regularly, my gloom didn't last long. Furthermore, even when Charlotte said unreasonable things to me, I never conveyed those facts to him. I wanted to avoid causing a rift in a couple with sensitive children at any cost, and I also wanted to believe that even if Charlotte disliked me, she didn't hate him. Oliver, unlike Charlotte, has always been fond of me since he was a child up to now at 15 years old. During one holiday, Oliver once came to visit me alone. If you have a cell phone, we can call each other anytime. He even went with me to a nearby store to buy a cell phone. Today's cell phones are amazing. You can make video calls without spending any money. Saying this, he patiently taught me how to use the cell phone. I'll write down the necessary steps, but if there's still something you don't understand, feel free to ask me anytime. I have school on weekdays, but I'm free on weekends. Oliver, much like Dylan, grew up to be a very straightforward and kind boy. Oliver, you're so sweet. Thank you always. But once you start high school, you'll be even busier. When will we see each other next? On the day Oliver was leaving, I finally teared up and said, "Oh, don't cry. With a cell phone, we can always stay connected through video calls." Saying this, Oliver hugged me. "Grandma, you should come over to our place sometimes. Dad and Mom will welcome you." Even if Dylan would, Charlotte probably wouldn't welcome me. Nonetheless, I was genuinely happy about his concern for me. Since then, every weekend, I received video calls from Oliver on my cell phone. "Grandma, guess what? I was chosen as a regular in the basketball team's official games." "That's great. Oliver, you're amazing at both studies and sports." Being able to stay in touch with Oliver whenever I wanted was my source of joy. However, that joy was short-lived. One day, I received a video call from Oliver. "Grandma, how are you?" His voice lacked its usual energy and enthusiasm. It seemed like he was whispering to avoid drawing attention, and it was very dark around him, probably because there were no lights on. "Oliver, where are you calling from?" He glanced around and then said, "I'm outside the front door. If I call from inside, Mom will get mad at me." He stuck out his tongue and laughed. According to him, Charlotte never liked the fact that he was video calling me. "If you video call that person again, I'll take your mobile phone away." That's what she had warned him. "What is she thinking?" I said, trying to ensure that Oliver wouldn't get his mobile phone taken away. "Don't push yourself too hard. Let's end this before it gets too long. Next time, call me when your mom isn't around." "Yeah, I'll contact you when I get the chance." Just as he promised, Oliver called me via video the next afternoon. He was out with friends from school, and unlike the previous day, he didn't have to whisper. Even at 15, Oliver still loves his grandma. "Shut up, go away." His friends laughed at him, but he seemed to enjoy our conversation. However, I felt that his tone was still somewhat gloomy. "Mom's not around right now, right? Why do you sound down? Did something happen?" "Well, it's about Mom." Oliver started speaking hesitantly. "When Dad is away for work, a strange man visits Mom. Sometimes she leaves with him in his car. Mom wears different makeup and clothes then. She greets him with a bright smile I've never seen her show to me or Dad." At 15, Oliver seemed to sense something was wrong. Though he didn't say it explicitly, he seemed to suspect a rift might be forming between his parents. "But if I try to ask Mom about it, she gets really moody and doesn't cook dinner. It scares me." "I see. But it might just be your imagination. Don't worry too much about it. Come on, smile. You look cutest when you're smiling." Oliver blushed. "Stop it, it's embarrassing," and said, "One day, I got a call from Dylan after a long time. Do you want to come over this weekend and have some good food with us?" "What? What did you just say?" For a moment, I thought I had misheard. Hearing my voice, Dylan laughed and said, "It's lonely and boring eating alone all the time, right? So, sometimes come over and have dinner with the family." I hesitated and said, "But, are you sure it's okay? Oliver wants you to come. He got to the top 8 in his last regional basketball tournament. We're celebrating that too." "Oliver invited me? In that case, I'll gladly accept." That day, Dylan picked me up at the station after finishing work. "Did Charlotte say anything about me coming today?" I asked him while we were waiting at a traffic light. "No, she didn't say anything in particular." "But why are you worried about that?" He replied with a gentle smile, turning the question back to me. "No, it's nothing." I gave a vague response and awkwardly smiled. It seemed that he was completely unaware of her true nature. When we arrived at the house, just as I got out of the car, the front door opened, and Oliver came rushing out. "Grandma, I'm so glad you came. I've missed you." When I handed him the local specialty sweets I had brought, he beamed. "Awesome, we'll have them together later." Oliver took my hand and led me inside the house. As soon as we stepped in, I felt a strange sense of quietness. "Where's Mom? Is she not home?" "She's here, sort of," Oliver replied hesitantly, pointing towards the living room. With a sense of foreboding, I slowly walked into the living room. "Welcome." Charlotte greeted me lazily from the couch, not even bothering to turn her head. Her voice was robotic, making my spirits sink. As I stood there in shock, Oliver pulled my hand. "What are you doing?" "Sit here." He directed me to the couch. "Mom, stop lying there. Grandma needs a place to sit." Reluctantly, Charlotte moved at Oliver's urging. After using the bathroom, Dylan appeared in the living room. "Oliver, shall we go pick up the pizza and appetizers we ordered?" "Yeah, okay." Oliver looked worriedly between me and Charlotte. "Go ahead," I said with a reassuring smile. "All right, I'll be back." Oliver followed Dylan out of the house. As soon as they were out the door, Charlotte predictably started. "Ugh, I can't stand this. Why does this quiet neighborhood have to smell so rustic?" She gave me a displeased look. Unable to bear it any longer, I stood up from the couch. "Maybe I'll go for a walk around the neighborhood until Dylan and Oliver get back." Her eyes narrowed. "What? An old woman like you from the countryside will just get lost and be a real nuisance." "Well, that's true. Or do you just not want to be with me, Ava? Do you want to get out of here?" "It's not that, but I think you are the one who's uncomfortable with me being here." Instead of responding, Charlotte laughed loudly. "If you don't want to breathe the same air as me, you're welcome to leave right now. When Dylan and Oliver get back, I'll just tell them you had an urgent matter." "No way, I'm not leaving." Oliver was really looking forward to today. Mentioning Oliver's name seemed to infuriate her even more. She glared at me with a furious expression. "You dirty old woman, you won't get any food. No shower, no bathroom. You're an adult, figure it out yourself." She clapped her hands and started laughing. "Charlotte, I knew you didn't like me, but I never thought it was this bad." My heart felt more sadness than anger. "Why do you hate me so much, Charlotte? If there's a reason, please tell me." Charlotte frowned deeply. "There's no reason. I just never liked you from the beginning. That's all there is to it. I married Dylan because he's financially stable. I never once recognized you as family. Then, Charlotte leaned in close to me, making a show of sniffing the air around me with exaggerated disgust. Listen, I can't stand being in the same space as you. It makes me sick to my stomach. You're filthy. Don't use the shower or the toilet. This isn't a request, it's an eviction notice. At that moment, Dylan and Oliver came home, both smiling. Hey, it's great the roads weren't busy for a weekend. Dylan said this as he laid out the freshly bought pizza and appetizers on the table. Charlotte set out Mom's plate. Charlotte, looking annoyed. Okay. Reluctantly complied. The savory smell filled the dining room, and my stomach growled with hunger, but I deliberately refrained from touching the food. What's wrong? Are you feeling okay? Dylan, unaware of the situation, asked with genuine concern. Grandma, this pizza is really good. Oliver tried to cheer me up while glancing at Charlotte. Charlotte, for some reason, had a triumphant smirk on her face. Seeing her expression, I reached my breaking point. Without a word, I stood up from my chair. Excuse me for a moment. Dylan and Oliver looked surprised. Mom, what's wrong? Yeah, Grandma, sit down and eat with us. They both offered kind words, but I just smiled and said, I need to use the restroom. I'll be back soon. I walked toward the door. Behind me, I could hear Dylan. What do you mean? Why isn't Mom using our bathroom? And Oliver questioning Charlotte. Charlotte, now panicking, stood up. What's going on? Ava, wait. Where are you going? She tried to follow me, but I shut the door behind me and stepped into the dark, quiet neighborhood. From inside, I heard Oliver shout. Grandma left her bag, and her phone is inside. She didn't take her wallet either. What's going on? Even clueless Dylan was starting to sense something was wrong, clearly flustered. Looking around, I saw lights on in every house, indicating people were home. I rang the doorbell of the house next door, labeled Williams. Hello? Sorry to bother you so late. I called out, hoping for a response. A middle-aged woman's voice answered from inside. What's the matter? I live next door. I know it's highly inappropriate to ask a stranger this, but... I took a humble tone, raising my voice enough for the nearby houses to hear. May I use your toilet? What? Toilet? Mrs. Williams sounded surprised. After a brief pause, she asked, Is your bathroom broken? Well, it's quite embarrassing, but my daughter-in-law has forbidden me from using it. I explained the situation loudly enough for the neighbors to hear, articulating clearly. Oh my, that's... She seemed unsure how to respond, clearly baffled by the situation. If I were in her shoes, I might have reacted the same way. Seeing the neighbors poking their heads out from their doorways to see what was going on, I continued. And if possible, I would like to use your shower as well. Oh my, that's quite serious. If you don't mind, please feel free to use our shower. It's not very large, but... Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I expressed my gratitude repeatedly. Mrs. Williams came out of the house directly and opened the gate for me. Please, come in and tell me more about it. I'm here to help. She showed a serious intent to listen to my story. Other neighbors also gathered in front of Mrs. Williams' house, and soon the street was filled with people. Among the crowd, I spotted Charlotte, but I ignored her and continued. Thank you. My son's wife has even forbidden me from eating. I further accused Charlotte of her cruelty. Seeing this, another neighbor spoke up. I'm Smith, who lives across the street. Here, Please have this if you like. Offering me some food. Thank you so much for going out of your way. Moved by the overwhelming kindness of the neighbors, I began to tear up. Is that true? What a terrible wife. Isn't that the house? The wife is Charlotte, right? I really dislike that wife. Even when we meet on the street, she doesn't return my greetings and even tries to avoid eye contact. Apparently, she had quite a bad reputation among the neighbors, and their accumulated dissatisfaction erupted into a full-blown gossip session about her. One of the neighbors went further. I saw something the other day. Starting with an enticing prelude. She seems to be inviting another man over when her husband is away. I saw her smiling and hugging another man. I know that. I've seen it several times too. You often see a black car parked in front of their house recently, don't you? Is that true? Dylan, his face filled with anger, cut into the buzzing conversation among the neighbors. Oliver was standing next to him. Is it true that my wife has been bringing another man into our house? He asked the neighbors again. They gave awkward smiles, but seeing Charlotte standing silently with her head down. So, what these people are saying is true. Honey, this is, Charlotte desperately tried to come up with an excuse, but it seemed she couldn't think of a good one. Unable to give a clear answer, Dylan's anger intensified. So the harassment towards Mom is true too. What the hell are you thinking? Have you been tormenting her all this time behind my back? Well, it's because she keeps nagging us about our marriage. I have never done that. Rather, it's you who has been trying to keep me away from Dylan, isn't it? Infuriated by Charlotte's constant blaming, I retorted in a strong tone. I won't let you have your way anymore. As I sternly declared, Charlotte, far from reflecting, became even more furious. That's all lies. I don't know anything about it. The car parked in front of our house recently is probably just some door-to-door salesman, right? It's so annoying. Everyone around here is just jealous because I'm the youngest and prettiest. So they spread baseless rumors that I'm bringing other men into our home to ruin our family. The person is the owner of the cafe in the next town over. One of the neighbors shouted. Hey, don't say unnecessary things. Lucas has nothing to do with this. Caught off guard by the sudden exposure of the person's identity, Charlotte unintentionally mentioned the name Lucas. Lucas? So, his name is Lucas? Dylan and the neighbors around didn't miss this slip. So what? That cafe just happens to be my favorite spot. It's not strange to know the owner's name, right? Or do you have proof that I'm having an affair with him? Charlotte tried to deny it, but Oliver, who had been quietly watching the commotion, spoke up. I've seen it many times. Mom getting into that Lucas guy's car. Her expression was different than when she looks at me and Dad. She seemed excited. He testified calmly with a mature tone. Oliver, what are you saying? You are the most important person to me. Charlotte tried to hug Oliver, but he pushed her away. I can't trust you anymore, Mom. I'm disappointed that you would do such terrible things to Grandma. He pushed Charlotte away with a strong tone. Oliver, you've known all along about her and that guy's relationship, haven't you? You've been suffering, right? Oliver nodded and continued. I wasn't sure. I just thought maybe. But I didn't want to hurt Grandma or Dad, so I kept quiet. I hugged Oliver tightly, feeling his kind heart that always thought of me and Dylan over himself. That owner was good-looking, though. I'm really disappointed by this whole situation. I'm not going to that cafe anymore. I've heard he brings in other young women, too. The rumors quickly spread, and regular customers began to leave Lucas's cafe one after another. I've never been to that cafe myself, but Dylan later told me that it seemed to be empty now. After that, Dylan and Charlotte officially got divorced. Charlotte and Lucas ended up paying a large amount of compensation and settlement money in the divorce trial for causing emotional distress to Dylan and Oliver. I don't need Mom anymore. I'll be happy as long as I have Dad and Grandma. Saying this, Oliver chose Dylan as his guardian himself. Wait a minute. I married you when I was young. I don't have any qualifications or job. How am I supposed to live now if we get divorced? You're just a stranger to us now. You should find your own way to live. Dylan coldly pushed her away, leaving her to live alone in loneliness and hardship. You have Lucas, don't you? Being with him makes you happier, doesn't it? I said with a hint of sarcasm. Then Charlotte, her eyes bloodshot, responded. Don't remind me of that. When I asked him about getting married, he said he was just playing around from the start, and then he disappeared right after. He's such a terrible jerk. Oh dear, that sounds tough. I couldn't help but laugh at her attitude, as she only blamed the guy. At the sensitive age of 15, Oliver had faced various troubles at home. Despite that, he used his intelligence as a weapon and successfully got into his first choice high school. Congratulations on your acceptance, Oliver. This time, let's celebrate big. I'll take you to a nice restaurant. Then Oliver, over a video call, said, Thank you. But can I ask for one thing? He had never once asked me for anything before. What is it? If you want something, I'll buy it for you anytime. I want to eat Grandma's home-cooked food, Oliver said, his eyes sparkling. Of course. I'll come over this weekend, then. Yay! I'll be waiting. With the barrier of Charlotte removed, I could now visit Dylan and Oliver's house without any reservations. However, a new worry emerged for me. What should I cook for him? It was a delightful and exciting problem that I couldn't stop thinking about. Grandma, do you think she'll make it? Let's pray. Grandma's fighting hard. Until yesterday, my mother-in-law, Selena, who was lively and well, suddenly collapsed due to a heart attack. It was my niece, Jane, who lives with Selena in our family home, that found her. In front of the ICU, we prayed desperately, but despite our prayers, Selena passed away without returning to us. Selena had 4 children, including my husband, but they arrived at the family home the morning after she passed away. Despite my suspicions about the 4 of them, we somehow managed to get through the funeral. And then, 1 week after the funeral, as life was finally returning to normal, and I had sent my 2 children off to elementary school and preschool, and was watering the flowers in the garden, the mailman came. Among a few postcards, there was one slightly thicker envelope. What could this be? The handwriting on the envelope was familiar, and to my surprise, the sender was Selena. I rushed inside the house, took a deep breath, and opened the envelope, which contained a letter and something else. Please make sure the children do not notice this letter. The letter, which started with this line, was sent through her best friend, expressing gratitude towards me, concern for the future of my children, Montague and Diamond, and also for Jane. Apart from the letter, there was another piece of paper with a map drawn on it. I hurriedly contacted Jane and headed to the location indicated on the map. I've always been helped by Selena until the end. Jane, I've made up my mind. Meadow, I'm supporting you. I had made a strong resolution. My name is Meadow. I live with my husband Frederick, my first-grade son Montague, and my 3-year-old daughter Diamond. I got married at 32, which wasn't too late, but it took a while before we could have children. I still remember how happy I was to finally be pregnant at 37, to the point of tears. With the pregnancy, I quit the company I had worked for 15 years since graduating from college. Although my colleagues were sorry to see me go, as a team leader, I was working overtime almost every day. And I couldn't imagine continuing to work while raising a child. I wanted to cherish the time with the child who had finally come to us. However, I also felt like quitting work would leave me behind in society, making it hard to make the decision. Once the kids start preschool and you have some time, you could work a little at our place. If you're family, you don't have to bow and scrape for sudden pickups, and it's more flexible. It was precisely when Selena, who ran a steakhouse, casually said these words that I was able to make up my mind to quit my job. Selena had lost her husband at a young age and raised 4 children on her own, a true matriarch through and through. Selena, doesn't this seem like a lot of food? You hit the jackpot. Eat up and work hard in the afternoon. She never sweated the small stuff. But she was more sensitive to others' feelings than anyone else. I remember how down I felt when I was struggling to get pregnant. Come on, look up. That's it. Stop by the shop before work starting tomorrow. Saying this, from the next day, she began giving me lunchboxes every day. Make sure you eat well. Being in good health is what's important. She never said it outright, but she took care to help me maintain a body more likely to conceive. My sister-in-law Wendy, sister-in-law Dream, and brother-in-law Melville all married and had children early, and by this time, Selena already had 11 grandchildren. Furthermore, she lived with Wendy, who had moved back home after a divorce, and her 3 children, while the Dream and Melville families lived nearby. Selena, who could see her 11 grandchildren anytime she wanted, must have been more than satisfied with them. Yet, she cried tears of joy for my pregnancy and childbirth. I have always had absolute trust in her, both in the past and now. 7 years have passed since I became a housewife, and with Diamond starting preschool, I decided to start working part-time at Selena's Steakhouse. Selena, listen to this. Montague broke his umbrella again on his way home. While doing the dishes, I vented to Selena about my children's misadventures. I was quite upset that he had broken 2 umbrellas in just a few months, but Selena seemed unfazed by the story. He wasn't being bullied, was he? No. He said he was competing with a friend to see who could dig deeper into the ground with their umbrella. It's good to have a competitive spirit. Plus, now he knows umbrellas are not for digging, right? Laughing along with Selena, I found myself smiling too. The frustration and annoyance from yesterday cleared away. A mother should indeed have this solid and unflappable presence. Being with Selena, I kept finding aspects to admire and emulate. She was my ideal image of a mother. By the way, Selena, do you have any plans for this Sunday? Nothing planned. Everyone's so busy these days. Selena looked a bit lonely. The grandchildren she lives with and those in the neighborhood are all in middle school or older now. They're busy with club activities and hanging out with friends, leaving little time for her. Well, Montague has been saying he wants to go to a sushi restaurant. Why don't we go together? I'd be so happy to see Montague and Diamond. Thank you for always inviting me. Selena's face softened. She dotes on Montague and Diamond a lot. The kids are very fond of her, too, and ideally, I'd love to take them to visit her at the family home more often. But with my sisters-in-law living there, it's not easy to just drop by. And having her come to our place isn't feasible either, as we don't have parking. So, Frederick and I decided to invite Selena out for meals or outings about once every 2 weeks, so she could spend time with our children. Eager to sit next to their beloved grandma, the kids always scrambled for the seat next to Selena. Watching them, Selena would smile warmly. Is Frederick working today, too? Yes. He's been really busy since he became a manager. I see. That's tough. Previously, Frederick would join us, but lately, his weekend work has increased, so it's been just the three of us going out with Selena. I wasn't too bothered by Frederick's absence, reasoning that work couldn't be helped and the kids weren't much trouble anymore. However, I couldn't ignore the somewhat lonely look that appeared on Selena's face. Next time, I'll make sure to invite us out on a day when Frederick isn't working. Selena looked surprised, then shook her head and smiled. Don't worry about that. I'm truly happy just to spend time with you all. Saying this, she pulled a small box from her bag. Selena smiled brightly and gently opened the box. This is my treasure box. This ring was given to me by Dad, and this necklace was my first purchase with my first paycheck. The treasure box filled with memories made me smile, too. What about this one in the bag? I pointed to a small drawstring bag. That you can open when I say it's okay. Huh? Ehe. Selena laughed mischievously. I'll give you my treasure box, Meadow. I'm not at the age to dress up anymore. Saying that, Selena carefully closed the box and placed it in front of me. But such important things. I want you to have them. To you, my precious daughter. Selena's words deeply touched me. I'll take good care of it. Mother-in-law. Selena smiled warmly and then gently hugged Montague, who was sitting next to her. That's not fair, only brother. Grandma, hug me later too. I'll give you a big hug once we're outside. Selena soothed Diamond, who puffed her cheeks out, with a tender look. Given how much love she showers not just on her grandchildren but also on me, her daughter-in-law, she must really cherish Frederick, her own child. Feeling a bit sad that Frederick seems unaware of the depth of his mother's love, I resolved to make sure Selena could see him the next time. However, that opportunity never came. On a holiday, I went out with the two children. Grandma will be here soon, right? We had invited Selena, but she had an appointment at the hair salon in the morning, so we arranged to meet at the lunch spot. Montague and Diamond stretched their necks, waiting eagerly for Grandma's arrival in front of the restaurant. But Selena didn't show up at the agreed time. I tried calling her several times, but she didn't answer. Being a professional, Selena always made it a point to answer the phone within 3 rings. This habit was ingrained in her, and she would instinctively answer within 3 rings even when not at her store. Yet today, she didn't pick up even after 10 rings. Knowing how reliable Selena was, if she was delayed at the hair salon, she would definitely have contacted us. What could have happened? I was getting worried. Even after waiting for 30 minutes, Selena was nowhere to be seen, and she still wasn't answering her phone. Hey, are we still waiting? I'm hungry. Me too. I want to eat now. As the children started to get cranky from hunger, I hesitated to enter the restaurant without Selena. Here, you can eat this gummy candy while we wait a bit longer for Grandma, okay? I handed out the gummies to the children and pondered. Could something have happened? Maybe I should go check her house. That's when my phone rang. Jane? The name displayed wasn't Selena's but Jane's, Wendy's youngest daughter. Hello, Jane, perfect timing. Is Grandma there? Meadow? What's wrong, Jane? I asked if Selena was at home, but over the phone, Jane sounded like she was crying, and her words were barely coming out. Grandma's collapsed. Meadow, what do we do? Jane's voice was tremulous and faint. Selena has? You can't be serious. I was at a loss for words. Jane seemed to be panicking, her sobbing audible over the phone. Snapping back to reality, I tried to calm her down. "It's okay. Take a deep breath." Though I was quite shaken myself, I knew I had to stay calm as the adult, my hands trembling as I spoke. "Where did Grandma collapse?" "In the entranceway." "I'm calling an ambulance right now." "Stay by her side, we're on our way." After hanging up, I immediately called for an ambulance to her house. Is something wrong with Grandma? Glancing over, I saw the children looking at me anxiously. It seems so. Let's go to Grandma's place, okay? I took the children's hands and headed for the parking lot. On the way, I stopped at a convenience store to buy hamburgers so the hungry kids could eat something in the car. Grandma likes plum. Saying so, Montague confidently added a hamburger for Selena to the basket. I'll share this chocolate with Grandma. Diamond innocently tossed the candy into the basket. Selena, wake up! For these kids, you have to pull through. I fervently hoped this. On our way to her house, Jane called to inform us that Selena was being taken to the university hospital. We rushed to the hospital. Arriving there, we found Jane sitting alone, hunched over in front of the ICU. Jane. Meadow. As soon as she lifted her face, tears streamed down Jane's cheeks. You did well on your own. It's okay now. I sat next to Jane and gently rubbed her back. After calming down a bit, Jane shared what happened when she found Selena. Jane, a 9th grader, said she was at club activities that morning. When she returned home before noon and tried to unlock the door, she found it already open. Feeling suspicious, she gently opened the door and discovered Selena collapsed. I'm sorry for calling all of a sudden. I couldn't get through to anyone else. You were the only one I could turn to, Jane said with an apologetic look. No, thank you for calling. We were supposed to have lunch with Grandma. And when she didn't show up past our meeting time and didn't answer her phone, I was really worried. But I never imagined she had collapsed. I regretted not heading to her house as soon as we couldn't get in touch. Then, a hospital staff member approached us. According to the staff, Selena had suffered a myocardial infarction and collapsed. Her condition was critical when she was brought in, and they were doing their best to treat her, but there was no guarantee she would survive. We need to contact everyone. Jane and I tried to call the relatives, but no one answered their phones. Why isn't anyone answering at a time like this? I was frustrated, especially since I couldn't even get through to Frederick. Lately, not only had he been working on weekends, but he also came home late on weekdays. He often came home slightly drunk. He said the drinking was for work or to cheer up his subordinates, but recently, it felt like he was neglecting his family. Selena wanted to see you. I got it. I'll make sure to join next time. Yet, on the morning of his day off, Frederick would say, something came up at work, and leave the house. Work or family, which is more important? This incident occurred amidst my growing frustrations with Frederick. Selena has collapsed and is in critical condition. Please contact us immediately. I sent this message, but there was no response from Frederick or his siblings. Is it normal for everyone to be this hard to reach? When I asked, Jane nodded. In our family, everyone does their own thing. It's always just Grandma and me for dinner. Is that so? I had no idea about this. At least, Selena had never mentioned it. According to Jane, her mother Wendy never took care of the house and would often disappear when the children were young. Selena had reprimanded Wendy many times. You are the mother of these 3 children. But Mom, you're better at housework and raising children than I am. Of course, I am. I raised 4 children. You'll get better if you do it every day. Selena tried to encourage Wendy to be more motherly, but Wendy continued to prioritize herself, coming and going as she pleased. Therefore, Selena, while working, tirelessly looked after Jane and her siblings with a smile. However, having grown up with such a mother, Jane's siblings now, apart from Jane, do not feel grateful towards Selena and leave the household responsibilities to her, living as they please. Now that I think about it, Selena always talked about Jane. I suddenly remembered. Jane's hamburgers are the best in the world, or when I started having trouble threading needles because of my farsightedness. Jane bought me a needle threader. Grandma always talked about Jane with a smile. Hearing my words, tears once again welled up in Jane's eyes. Will Grandma make it? Let's pray. Grandma's fighting. But despite our hopes, Selena passed away, leaving us behind. Looking at Selena lying on the bed, she seemed to be just sleeping with her usual gentle expression. Grandma, we bought you a hamburger. Let's eat chocolate together. The children, mistaking her for just sleeping, spoke to Selena. Grandma won't wake up anymore. She's gone to heaven. Where's heaven? Is it a nice place? It's a very nice place. Grandma must be happy meeting Grandpa there. Indeed, Selena must have finally met her husband whom she longed to see. I hoped they would spend their time together happily. With that thought, I couldn't find myself crying. We received explanations from the hospital about what would happen next and headed to the family home to prepare for the funeral. Even though it was already evening, nobody was at the family home. The kitchen was set up for dinner. It must be cream stew for tonight. The amount prepared was for a family of 5. Despite not knowing when everyone would return or if they would eat, Selena always prepared meals for the whole family. Till the end, I was deeply moved by Selena's kindness and greatness. Colleagues from Selena's steakhouse also came to the family home to help. We want to help in any way we can for Selena, they said, helping with the funeral preparations. While sharing memories of Selena, we brainstormed and proceeded with the preparations. Jane was the only one familiar with the house. But there were things even she, still a high school student, didn't know, making the preparations challenging. Wendy, whom we thought would return eventually, never came back, and there was no contact with any of the siblings-in-law. Although there was much to consider, my thoughts were only on Selena, and I took the initiative to act. Frederick and his siblings arrived at the family home the next morning. What have you been doing all this time? I gave Frederick a cold look. There was trouble at work. I was utterly dismayed that Frederick, even after his own mother passed away, still used work as an excuse. And it wasn't just him. From Wendy and the other siblings-in-law, there was no word of thanks for anything said about Selena or for the funeral preparations. Then, see you at the funeral. Call us anytime if you need anything. Sensing the odd atmosphere, the colleagues quietly left. During the funeral, Jane and I, despite our grief, fulfilled our duties as family members. But Selena's own children seemed indifferent and did not make any effort to participate. Thinking about these 4 disturbed my peace of mind. I focused on my last moments with Selena. A week after the funeral ended. As life slowly returned to normal and I had sent the 2 kids off to elementary school and preschool, I was watering the garden when the mailman arrived. Among a few postcards, there was one slightly thicker envelope. What could this be? The handwriting on the envelope was familiar, and surprisingly, the sender was Selena. I quickly went inside the house, took a deep breath, and opened the envelope, which contained a letter and something else. Please make sure the children do not notice this letter. The letter, starting with this line, was sent through her best friend, expressing gratitude towards me and concern for the future of Montague, Diamond, and Jane. Apart from the letter, there was another piece of paper with a map drawn on it. I hurriedly contacted Jane and headed to the location indicated on the map. I've been helped by Selina until the end. Jane, I've made up my mind. Meadow, I'm supporting you. I had made a strong resolution. A month later, we were called by a lawyer to the family home. Besides us, the Wendy family, Dream family, and Melville family were also gathered. It turned out that Selina had prepared a will during her lifetime and left it with the lawyer. In the will given by the lawyer, Wendy, Frederick, Dream, Melville, divide everything equally among the four of you. It was written. I thought I had no part in this, so I should go upstairs and take care of the children. Just as I was about to stand up, an unbelievable phrase caught my ear. She was a noisy old woman, but at least it was good she left us an inheritance. The voice belonged to Frederick. Really, it was worth putting up with everything. The four of them mocked Selina's memory. At that moment, my anger exploded. I no longer want anything to do with any of you. And that includes you. With that, I slammed a completed divorce application form on the table. The room fell silent. What's this all of a sudden? You've been living because of what I do, you know. Frederick glared at me sharply, but I glared back without backing down. The late nights and weekends weren't for work, but for your affairs, right? I have the evidence. I then spread out a private investigator's report on the table. In fact, the letter from Selina included a key to a coin locker located at the place marked on the map. When Jane and I opened the locker, we found a report on Frederick's affair. Selina must have felt something was off with Frederick's recent work on weekends. This must be a mother's intuition. Selina had secretly hired a detective agency to gather evidence of Frederick's infidelity. I was completely unaware of the affair, so I was truly amazed by Selina's actions. I don't want a share of the inheritance or compensation from the divorce trial. Just sign the divorce papers now. And never involve yourself with me or the children again. I couldn't bear to be with someone who disregards their family any longer. I spoke with increased fervor. Frederick's expression twisted for a moment, but then he smirked. Fine by me. I'll get to use Mom's inheritance all by myself. Works out better for me. He then filled out the divorce application without hesitation. Since the lawyer is here, it's better to get that promise in writing. Jane's voice came from the side. Right. Saying you don't want compensation from the divorce trial, then coming back crying later is exactly what I'd expect. That's my girl. Wendy praised Jane. Jane was actually advising me out of concern. Thinking this, I didn't retort but decided to have the lawyer draft a document outlining the divorce terms as Jane suggested. The discussion about the divorce was over, and I left the family home with the children. As I was leaving, I asked, the things I received from my mother-in-law during her lifetime aren't considered part of the inheritance, right? May I keep them as keepsakes? Those are just trinkets in a jewelry box, right? Please, feel free to take them. The four siblings, including Wendy, mocked Selina and seemed preoccupied with the inheritance, quickly wanting to dismiss me and the children, outsiders to them. After that, we headed straight to my parents' home. Welcome back. We've put your things in your room. I had informed my parents about Frederick's affair and my decision to divorce him as soon as I found out. Considering the children, I thought about moving within their current school district despite being jobless. But my family lived in a different state. Children adapt quickly, you know. Encouraged by my father's words, I decided to temporarily return to my parents' home. It was immediately clear that this was the right decision. Visits to my parents' home were rare, maybe once a year. Though initially tense about living with my parents, the children quickly grew fond of them. "Grandpa, let's play catch." Montague, unlike with Frederick, who rarely spent time with him, started playing catch with my dad, who showed him affection. "Grandma, what's this flower?" Diamond, who had been missing Selena, began to enjoy the garden flowers with my mom, knowledgeable about plants. They gradually adjusted to their new schools, and we started a modest yet peaceful life. About 3 months later, I received a call from Frederick. "Did you deceive us?" He seemed to be talking about the jewelry box I had received from Selena before she passed. "I heard from Wendy. There were expensive jewels inside that box." In fact, besides the evidence of the affair, there was another letter in the coin locker. That letter mentioned the jewelry box Selena gave me before her passing. Selena said, "It's okay. When I was told I could open the drawstring bag I had been given permission to open. It contained a gemstone called Alexandrite, and the value of the gemstone was about $500,000. This gem allowed me to decisively move forward with the divorce from Selena." Apparently, Wendy had eavesdropped on a conversation between me and Jane, discovering the existence of the gem. "That's why I asked clearly, didn't I? If it was okay to keep what mother-in-law gave me before she passed. That's sneaky." Even over the phone, I could tell Frederick was furious. It wasn't surprising, considering they were now burdened with dividing not just the inheritance, but also the debt among themselves. I had been completely unaware of the debt. Later, Jane told me over the phone that Selena had taken a $500,000 loan 5 years ago for renovations to her shop. If she hadn't purchased the jewel for me, she wouldn't have needed to take on such a massive debt. But this was a testament to Selena's kindness. "Grandma always appreciated how kind you were to her, Meadow. Since her own sons and daughter were so distant, she was even happier that you became part of the family." Selena had wanted to express her gratitude to me, and she intended to work off the $500,000 debt herself. If Frederick and his siblings had been kinder to Selena, perhaps she wouldn't have felt the need to leave them with such a burden. They had truly brought this upon themselves. I hoped they would reflect deeply on their actions. After the divorce, Frederick and his siblings tried to contact me several times. But thanks to the agreement we made during the divorce, I managed to fend them off. Not only Frederick but other brothers contacted me. "Next time you contact me, I will consult the police." After I told them that, all contact from them suddenly stopped. According to Jane, the siblings finally realized they needed to sort out their issues on their own. Now, they're embroiled in a dispute over whether to sell the family home. Wendy wants to continue living there rent-free, while Frederick and the others want to sell it to alleviate some of the debt. The 4 of them seemed to get along well when they were making fun of Frederick. But in the end, all 4 of them can only think about themselves. Despite everything, I felt truly relieved to have distanced myself from such people. The only person I've kept in touch with is Jane. She moved for university and, coincidentally, started living alone near my parents' home. "Montague, I'll help you with your homework." Yay! I love Sister Jane because she's so kind. Jane, with her kind heart, is now studying to become a nurse, aiming to help people just like her grandmother did. Although she can't rely on her mother Wendy, Jane has been working hard, earning a scholarship for tuition exemption and covering her living expenses with part-time jobs and scholarships. When Jane decided on her university, I offered to sell the gem to help with her expenses, but she refused. "I want to show Grandma that I can live my life well, with a respectable job on my own strength." Hearing Jane's determination, I decided to quietly support her in her journey. Jane, with her kindness and strong will, she is sure to become a wonderful woman like Selena. When that time comes, I plan to give her a portion of the money from selling the gemstone. After all, Jane was the only grandchild who stayed by Selena's side throughout. And now, I'm also looking for work, trying not to be outdone by Jane. I'm considering starting my own business, something that can be balanced with parenting, and my plans are gradually taking shape. This is all thanks to the jewelry box that Selena left behind. I intend to use some of the initial funds for startup costs, but ultimately want to support my children with the money I earn myself. I want to go to Finland to see the aurora. Montague's eyes sparkle as he solves his homework with a world map drawn on it. Recently, he's been very fond of the globe he received as a gift, eagerly sharing his knowledge about the countries of the world. I want to meet Santa Claus. I'd prefer somewhere warm, like Hawaii. Everyone dreams of their own desired destinations. That's it. I'll use the money Selena left behind to take the children and Jane to the places they want to visit. Surely, it will be an enriching experience that broadens their horizons. Just imagining it fills me with excitement. Selena, thanks to you, we can spend our days with smiles on our faces. Please continue to watch over us.